Tonight there is 10 games, and here are my NBA game predictions for January 15th of 2022. Tonight there is 10 games, and I'll be going over the spreads and over-unders for all the games. I got these spreads from FanDuel, and then the over-unders are a mix of what I got from FanDuel and my thoughts on the overall games. For Toronto at Milwaukee, I'll be going with Toronto plus 8. So Milwaukee is one of those teams where when they play against one of the better top-tier teams, they win those games, or they play it really close, but they usually end up winning those games. When they play like a mid-tier or low-tier team, it ends up being close, but sometimes they lose too. They kind of play to their competition overall, so hence I'll be going Toronto plus 8, as I expect Toronto to stay within all 3 quarters, as Milwaukee will keep them in the game all 3 quarters, and then they'll stay close the entire 4th quarter too. And Toronto has enough tools on their team to slow down the Bucks. I think between like Scotty Barnes and Siakam, I think that's enough tools to at least slow down Giannis, make him have to work for his buckets, force him to get his team involved. And then the role players, that means the role players will have to step up for Milwaukee and make their shots, which once again is Toronto's mid-tier team, so the role players for Milwaukee, they're probably not going to show up just for that reason. It's just a weird trend I've noticed. So I will be going under 221.5, as I think both teams will be playing defense against each other, and this shouldn't turn out into a shootout at all. So I'll be going under 221.5. For Portland at Washington, I'll be going with Washington minus 8. So Damian Lillard is out for the Trailblazers, so it's going to be dependent on Nurkic to stay out of foul trouble, and for the role players for Portland to step up and make their shots, make their threes, and have the offense go, which I don't see that happening as likely as I do Washington just having a better game than Portland, as Washington has most of their players, they got their key players playing, and that should be enough for Washington to win, because you got Kuzma and Dinwiddie. Like, there's enough offensive power to keep up with Portland and exceed them, and there's also enough defensive prowess and rebounding talent on Washington that Portland will struggle to stay in the game, and they'll also struggle to win, as I believe Washington should win this game outright, no problem. And it'll be likely that they'll cover that spread too of minus 8. We'll go over 232.5, as I believe both teams, they're not known for their defense, but they're more known for their scoring, especially Portland. But I think Washington should exceed Portland's scoring. This will be a shootout throughout the game. A lot of threes will be shot, a lot of threes will be made. Over 232.5. For New Orleans at Brooklyn, I believe New Orleans will stay within the spread of plus 7, as the Nets are another one of those teams that they play to their competition. When like a good team shows up, they try and win that game or blow them out. And then when they play one of those lower tier teams, they just keep it close and just try and win in the 4th quarter. Overall, I think for New Orleans, they will stay in the game for the first half, as I believe Valanciunas, he should have his way against Brooklyn, as Brooklyn doesn't have too many answers for him. So I think Valanciunas should get his rebounds, get his points without a problem. And then in turn for the Nets, Durant and Harden, no one on New Orleans can really slow them down either. But then again, no one can really slow down Durant, but no one on New Orleans for sure can. So it's just going to be on them to just, if they can get to their spots and hit their shots. Like, if they can do that, Brooklyn will win, as I do expect Brooklyn to win. But I think overall, it'll be likely that this game will be closer, and the Pelicans will be within 7. I will be going over 228.5, as I think New Orleans scoring for this game will keep them in it, and then I don't think the Pelicans' defense should slow down the Nets too much, so over 228 seems like a safe bet, as I believe like Ingram will get it going, as he is playing against Harden and Durant. He wants to show his skills off, and then Valanciunas is a big man. He can bully his way to that, and then as long as the role player for the Nets shows up, it'll be a high-scoring game. For the Knicks at the Hawks, We lean towards the Knicks -3. The Hawks played last night, and it was against the Heat. That was a close game throughout, so that means the Hawks had to play all 4 quarters and play their starters heavy minutes. The Knicks did not have to play last night, so that's an advantage towards them. And then there's 2 ways to look at this game. So if you think this game is going to be more defensive and the Hawks are going to be sluggish from last night, I'll lean towards the Knicks. If you think this game is going to be a shootout and the Hawks won't really feel the effects from last night, you should take the Hawks winning. And then I just feel like since the Knicks are fresher, so this is going to be more of a defensive bout. So I actually would take the Knicks greater than -3, maybe like up to like -6, as the Knicks, they're not going to score a lot, because that's just how the Knicks play. I think Atlanta's defense, they shouldn't slow down the Knicks too much, but I think just the Knicks in general just struggle on the offensive end. Hence why I'm going with the under 213.5, as just the Knicks offense in general is just horrid, but I think the Knicks defense will slow down the Hawks a lot. Like, if this turns into a shootout, I think Trae Young can outshoot the Knicks, but I think the Knicks defense should be able to slow down the Hawks. Then the Knicks are just bad at offense, so under 213.5. For Cleveland at the Thunder, I'll be going with Cleveland +5. So Cleveland is going to be without their main set of point guards, as Rondo is day-to-day. So I think the Cleveland Cavaliers offense will struggle somewhat, but as long as you get it to the 7-footers, just run some plays, I think that should be enough against the Thunder to at least keep it close and possibly win. As the Cavaliers, I think their system and coaching has been done very well this year. That's been winning them games. For the Thunder, they may have like all but one of their players back, but they're still struggling overall. They've had some wins, but they're kind of up and down, a little random overall. And I think Cleveland's defense will hinder the Thunder, make them struggle. So Cleveland will keep it close. I think the Thunder's defense shouldn't slow down Cleveland too much. So I think overall this will be over 209.5, as I think Cleveland should be able to keep up their scoring, and if the Thunder also keep up the Cavaliers scoring, that will bring this over 209.5. If Cleveland's defense does slow down the Thunder, it will be very close to 209.5, but I think overall it will overcome 209. For Philadelphia at the Heat, I'll be going with Philadelphia +2, as the Heat played last night against the Hawks, and it was a close game throughout, so that's very taxing if you have to play all 4 quarters and play your starters heavy minutes. So Philadelphia should have the advantage. Also, Embiid is playing, and most of the 76ers are healthy. You have Harris, you have Curry, so as long as those two can hit their open shots and play, put some effort on some defense, make sure their shots on the offense, I think Philadelphia should come out with the win. And I believe Bam is still out, so there's going to be a lot of focus on trying to slow down Embiid. I'm sure Spoelstra has some schemes to slow him down, so it's like as long as Harris and Curry and all the role players for the 76ers step up, I think the 76ers should come out with the win. For the Heat's case, if they just knock down their threes, that'll keep them in the game, give them the lead. But on the second night of a back-to-back, hard to say if that'll happen. It's easier to bet on the team that's a little more fresh, so that's what I'm doing. We'll be going over 211.5, as I believe 76ers, even though the Heat do have a good defense overall, I think the 76ers should take advantage over the tired legs for the Heat. And I think the 76ers defense kind of mid-tier, so I think Miami Heat will just be like slightly below their averages, but I think they'll still meet them. But they won't be like exceeding it by like 10, 20 points. It'll be right around there, so I'll be going over 211.5. For the Bulls at the Celtics, I think the Bulls will want to redeem their loss against the Warriors, and they should stay within +4.5 and then possibly win. They are without Levine, but I think with DeRozan and the rest of the group that's left there, I think it should be able to handle the Celtics, because the Celtics are notorious for getting a big lead and just letting the teams like creep back in, as Tatum, he's going to have a black hole on offense. If he just gets the ball, he's going to shoot the ball. I mean, it is basketball at the end of the day. You want to put the ball in the basket. He likes to do that. May not be the best at it, but that's what he likes to do. But overall, I think Chicago's defense, it's still going to be there. I mean, Caruso does help, but he is out. So I think Boston should be able to score their points between Brown and Tatum. And then will Boston have an answer for DeRozan? It's going to come down to Jaylen Brown, as Smart is out. And then you still got Vucevic you have to deal with, who is a skilled big man. You got to respect him. So if he has a big game, then Chicago should win. Like, if DeRozan and Vucevic have a good game, they're going to win. And then if both of them have a good game, then also on the Celtics, Jaylen Brown and Tatum have a good game, I think the advantage is still to the Bulls, but it'll be a close game, like within the 4.5. Then overall, I think if the Celtics get off to a hot start, they'll allow Bulls to get back in. Hence, we'll go over 214.5. If the Bulls get off to a hot start, I think the Celtics will just keep chucking threes, which will raise up the score, as I think they'll get back in the game, because I just think this will end up being a close game. And then we'll go over 214.5, as this will be more offensive game than a defensive game. For the Clippers at the Spurs, going with the Clippers plus 2.5. I think there's more experience on the Clippers side, and there's kind of a trend where every other game they play well. Their last game they didn't play well, so that means as the pattern goes, Clippers should play well tonight. So I'll be going Clippers plus 2.5. Also, the Spurs played last night, so that's tired legs. And I like to bet on the teams that are not playing on the second night of a back-to-back, and the Clippers did not play last night, so easier to bet on them. As long as the Clippers, they run their offense, make their open shots, and then Ty Lue, he keeps his team motivated, as seen in the Denver game. After that horrid first half, they're able to claw back and win that game, which was actually impressive. I think that mentality with that group, that should keep them in the game. And then I think the Spurs are young. They might get rattled. Popovich can only guide them so much. As the Clippers, they've been to the playoffs. It's pretty much the same group. So they're not rattled as much. So I think the Clippers should stay in this game, possibly win. But it will be a close game overall. I will be going under 218.5, as I think the Clippers defense should slow down the Spurs. And the way they play will be a slower paced game. As the Spurs, if I'm the Spurs, I try and run the ball more. Try and rack up the points. Try and force some mistakes, even though you'll make a few more mistakes. I think just running up and down, that's to the Spurs' advantage, but I don't think that will happen. It'll be a slower paced game, so under 218.5. For the Lakers at Denver, I'll be going Denver -4. So this is going to be a battle between LeBron and the Joker. So for Jokic, there's no one on the Lakers that will be able to slow him down, so he should be able to get his assists, his rebounds, and his points. Shouldn't have any problem with that. But for LeBron, I think Denver has an answer, better than most teams, but at least something to slow him down, as LeBron's been playing well. I think Aaron Gordon can play some solid defense on LeBron, so that will slow down the Lakers a little bit. Not a lot, but it'll force LeBron to play harder and expend more energy, so he won't have a lot in the fourth quarter when it matters. So that's why I'll be going Denver -4. So this game will come down to the role players for both teams, and then Westbrook, he's kind of a loose cannon. So it's really, if he has a good game, but that means he has a lot of mistakes. He's just a wild card. But it's going to come down to Monk for the Lakers, or Aaron Gordon, or Morris for the Nuggets. It's just, can the role players knock down the open shots, make the correct plays, play some solid defense on the other team, try and slow them down, get some stops. I think Denver has an advantage in that boat. I will be going over 224.5, as neither team is known for their defense. I think this will be a shootout towards the end, because currently I believe I saw this over-under at 224.5. I wouldn't be surprised to raise this up to 229.5. So I think this overall will turn out into a shootout. as the Lakers, when they start getting behind, they'll start chucking threes, and then um, Jokic, when his team starts getting behind, he'll start to take it like into his boat and try and score all the points. So either or, this should go over 224.5 without a problem. For the Magic at the Mavericks, we're going Dallas minus 10.5. So both these teams played last night. Mavericks had a bigger win, so they're able to rest a little bit more. So that's an advantage towards them. Luka is back for them, so that's also another advantage. Then also they're playing at home, and that's a third advantage. So for that reason, I'll be going with the Mavericks. I think minus 10.5 is kind of steep, but I think that amount is more likely than the Magic staying within 10.5. As the Mavericks defense, I think, should slow down the Magic a lot more than Charlotte's did last night, as the Mavericks were able to hold Memphis down to 85. So if the Mavericks can hold Memphis to 85 in the first day of a back-to-back, I think they should be able to hold the Magic below like 101 on the second night of a back-to-back. And then I think in turn the Mavericks should be able to score over 112. So which that would cover that 10.5 spread. So then the over, I think Magic shoots a lot of threes, and then the Mavericks also shoot a lot of threes. So between them, I think there should be like about 25 to 30 threes made. So that's going to be a lot of threes. That will bring it over 208.5. And then between Doncic being back, no one's on the Magic to really slow him down, as not a lot of players can slow down him, if any player can slow down Luka, so he should be able to have his way with the Magic, and that's going to just power the Mavericks offense to, I think, overall a high-scoring game. Thank you for watching. Leave your comments on your thoughts on the spreads, over-unders, or any player props that you had. And once again, thanks for watching.